About the big three, most of the time when people are mentioning the big three in anime, it's always for the shonen big three. They're the official and unofficial biggest trio in anime, but people rebrand the big three titles for lots of things. It was made specifically for those three animes, but you can make a big three for anything. Like if you wanted the big three for fast food, it's like McDonald's, Popeyes, and fucking Wendy's, I guess. It's always for the same thing though. The three biggest most influential animes in whatever category. Like people making a new gen big three in shonen. It's not that official or cemented yet though. If I had to see the new big three for shonen, it would be like Demon Slayer, My Hero, and Chainsaw Man. Those are the most popular in the magazine right now. I didn't fact check that or anything, but I'm pretty confident it is. Just like how people are creating a big three for shonen, people started to do the same thing for seinen. It's a lot more broad though, cause the shonen big three is all from one magazine. But most magazines have mangas people consider seinen. If it's anything more mature, it's probably a seinen. But the big three for seinen is pretty legit. It's as official as the first shonen big three. For seinen is Berserk, Vagabond, and Kingdom. The last one is kind of half and half though. Some people think it's between Villain Saga and Kingdom. Most of the time I see more people liking Villain since it has an anime and everything. But Kingdom outsells it by a lot, like 17 times more than Villain Saga. But Villain is a lot easier to get into and enjoy. It's about Vikings that like pillaging. The initial premise is easy enough. Kingdom is a lot of warfare and political tactics, like real life Genghis Khan type shit. It's one of those mangas that won't try to simplify things too much, even if they know it makes it harder to understand it. I think it's a pretty decent lineup for seinen's big three. I'm not a manga connoisseur, I don't know most of what's out there, but it sounds about right. Berserk definitely makes sense on why it's there. Dark Souls, Devilman Crybaby, Toontown. It's inspired a lot of shit outside of just manga. Vagabond since is also a top selling manga, and a lot of people put it in the same league as Berserk. I actually think Vagabond's better than Berserk. I mean, if I just listen to a Berserk opening or soundtrack, it might switch up, but most of the time I would say I like Vagabond more than Berserk. I even started rereading Vagabond again. It's what made me come up with a video idea. To be honest, this video was kind of an excuse to talk about Vagabond. I got through like 100 chapters in the same day I started reading it. It's the only manga I ever read that much in one day, even if it was just a full day of me reading it. I somehow read more Vagabond than One Punch Man in the same day, even though I was reading One Punch Man for the first time. The chapters aren't short or anything, by the way. It can vary from long to long as fuck, like 2 or 3 times the size of a shonen chapter probably. I don't think I'll read the whole thing through though. I already got to the part I wanted to get to the most. The whole arc with Takuzo fighting Inshun, the monk nigga. I'll probably read a little bit more, but I already feel that desire to read is starting to fizzle out. That was like an impulse to want to read it again. But still, I don't be rereading or rewatching anything like that. Most of the time when I try to reread something, I lose interest really quickly. I then end up not going through with it. I was reading One Punch Man and the art was looking good, and it made me think about Vagabond. And then I thought about how good Vagabond is, so I reread it from chapter 1. That just goes to show how good the story and art is. It probably has the best art I've seen in any anime, or manga I mean. I say probably because I might be forgetting something, but I'm pretty confident about it. The only other manga I've read that I can say is in the same league as Berserk. Both of them have lots of panels I can just look at and appreciate, artistically. Basically, if you could put them in a museum and it doesn't feel out of place, I think it's in the same league as Vagabond or Berserk. Then you have Kingdom with that also being a top selling manga, and being really good at the warfare shit it does. Kingdom is probably the least appealing to a wide audience out of the three. I mean, unless you don't like a lot of gore, but then you probably don't like any of them. It doesn't feel as simple to understand as the others. I'm making it sound like you need to be smart as fuck to read Kingdom, but basically what I'm saying is if you are invested and paying attention to small details, you're gonna end up confused. The others are a lot more straightforward. For Berserk, it's a nigga with a big sword that kills demons part-time. You could boil it down to just that, and say that it does a good job in getting what it's mostly about. Vagabond is just Takuzo trying to be the best swordsman in the world. You could say Kingdom is just about a kid trying to be a general, but the events themselves to get to his goal is pretty complicated. Takuzo just has to be whoever is stronger than him to be the best swordsman, and Gus has to beat whatever demon he comes across. But for Shin it's about warfare and politics and shit. Mostly the political part. Like he can't just go kill a general and become one off rip. In his first campaign he killed a general, but he didn't even get recognized as one until like chapter 600. For Kingdom I think it's different cause Shin's goal is treated more secondary to the story. In Vagabond and Berserk, the MCs both have their goals as the primary target or the endgame. Shin's dream is definitely not the endgame for the Kingdom story though. The bigger picture is with Quinn trying to take over all of China, and it's not like a linear path you take, where you just take down each country one by one. The fighting part is what Shin mostly deals with, but he acts according to whatever Sei wants, and that nigga looks at it from a political perspective. Shin is like Sei's Zoro basically. The fighting part itself isn't easy, but they need to do it in a certain way to not have infighting and shit. Cause you can't expect niggas to obey you if you just steamrolled their country and took over. They have to do things in a very specific way, and that's not even including how other countries have their own schemes, with their own invading and double crossing and all that. On the surface, Kingdom feels more shonen-like or simplistic than both of them, but when you start reading Kingdom, it starts to feel a lot more complicated. You can have your entire focus on one country, and then have another in the background scheming, and that might make say backtrack, and then you have to focus on something else altogether. It has a lot of sales, but it still feels pretty unknown in the West, so read it if you haven't yet. That shit is good. If you enjoyed, check out my other videos about anime shit. That's all I have to say though. Peace.